Well, the top story this evening, the government has moved the National Company Law Tribunal in Mumbai seeking to supersede the board of Debt-Ridden IL&FS, accusing the current board of mismanagement. The government said the company has reached a similar situation to Satyam a decade ago and wants to walk on the same path to try and find a resolution. Now, the government has proposed Uday Kotak's name as the chairman of the new board to shore up sentiment and confidence in the market. The government argued before the NCLT that many mutual funds could collapse if IL&FS collapses, and it also added that it was deeply concerned about the cascading impact of the IL&FS fiasco. Utkarsh Chaturvedi joins us now from inside the Company Law Tribunal in Mumbai. Utkarsh, take us through the court action and when can we expect that order to be pronounced?
Shireen, as we speak, it can be any time the order can be pronounced. All of us are really waiting for the judges to come in and give the order. But as you rightly said, there are two parts of the hearing today which happened. The first one was that the Union of India, which was represented by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, said that the Union of India has ordered an investigation to the SFIO office yesterday. In fact, the ROC Mumbai did its preliminary inquiry and has seen a severe mismatch and total lack of liquidity in the books of accounts. And now what the Union government also accused IL&FS board is that the board has been showing a very rosy picture when it comes to its balance sheet, but the truth was something different. And this is why one of their posts is that the complete board of IL&FS for the time should be suspended and a new board should take over. A very important thing to note is that the Union government in the court said that the board is ready to take over the company, and it is a very immediate concern by the evening itself. Now, one name has come out, that Uday Kotak is a part of the 10-member team. We all are waiting for other names to come out. But as you said, a very important time we are all awaiting an order, and an order can come any minute from now.
All right, Utkarsh, appreciate you joining us. We are awaiting that order from the NCLT. But staying with IL&FS, the business model of IL&FS may need a revamp to put the company on the recovery path. Parikshit Luthra has been speaking to people who've been involved with IL&FS, and he joins us now. Parikshit, so the government has moved in to supersede the board of IL&FS. But while the government claims that the SFIO probe has shown that there are irregularities, the board itself believes that it is the business model that finds itself broken in India.
We have been trying to speak to several of the board of directors, and they're all tight-lipped because they want to see what the order is. They also see that this cannot be looked at in isolation. We really have to see the events of the last 5 to 10 years. Essentially, what our sources are telling us that the entire model of financing infrastructure projects in India needs to be looked at because the situation is rather worrying. Any infrastructure project to become financially stable and financially self-sufficient needs a 15 to 20-year period, and banks in India don't provide loans of that kind. The maximum period for which provide loans are about an 8 to 10-year period. Following that, refinancing used to be done initially. That has stopped over the last 2 to 3 years, and IL&FS itself has not given any BOT loan in the last 3 years. Sources are telling us that the board of directors were absolutely aware of what was happening. There were attempts to sell the company as well, sell assets of the company, and also bring an IPO. But all of that failed. There was no real option on the table. So they're saying that do not look at this in isolation. Do not compare this to Satyam because there is no private holding of any loan or asset here in India. Back to you.
All right. Appreciate you joining us with that, Parikshit. We've been speaking with a whole bunch of experts on this issue. Vedanta's Anil Agarwal believes that the government's decision to supersede the board and nominate Uday Kotak as chairman is a good one. IIS Amit Tandon believes that it is important to maintain credibility in the system, and he gives this a vote of confidence as well. Listen in.
No, government is very decisive how they take action. If you see, IL&FS is so important for the world, for the credit rating agency, for all over the world is watching. And this time, the most credible name is Uday Kotak. And if government is proposing, you will see the stability will come and government will be comfortable because they'll be changing the full board.
I think at the heart of what the government is wanting to do at this stage or attempting to do at this stage is build credibility around the whole process, because we know that the management let the whole situation spin out of control, and there's no denying that it had kind of leveraged itself very significantly to be able to finance infrastructure projects, but the situation kind of gotten out of hand. So if you've got some adult in the room, someone who is going to be able to build credibility, that will go a long way in calming the nerves as far as the market is concerned.
Well, reactions there. Let's go across to Lata now for more on what she makes of the IL&FS saga. Lata, a Satyam-style rescue, the best option considering where we are?
Oh, well, absolutely. You know, IL&FS, probably the management had a credible plan, but there was no guarantee that bankers, given the current state of risk aversion, would have chipped in with extra money in terms of bridge financing to complete incomplete projects, even refinance, restructure current loans by giving them longer repayment time. None of these would have come for fear of investigation. Likewise, remember, now the mutual fund culture we were boasting has spread to a larger number of Indians. We have about 7 crore accounts, which means, you know, a family of 4, there are 32 crore Indians who are looking at the mutual fund market. Any fall even connected to IL&FS because of contagion is going to rattle a much larger number of Indians than hitherto. And there are pension and provident funds involved. We are told nearly 15,000 crore. Even if it is 10,000 crore, that's a lot of pension investors who would be desperate, who are practically dependent on these funds to give them returns. So this was a political economic issue where the government stamp was needed to abate the crisis, to prevent it from becoming a larger problem. Now with the government coming in, wary bankers will be willing to put in a little more money, and there will not be this disorderly, everyone coming in and trying to grab, and the person shouting the fastest and the shrillest getting away with the monetization of assets. Now there can be a standstill ordered by the NCLT, and assets can be slowly monetized. So the presence of the government was needed only because things were spiraling out of control, and this always happens in a debt situation. First you fall slowly and then you fall suddenly. Not my words, Ernest Hemingway's words when he asked one of the candidates how to default, and he said first slowly and then suddenly. That's how all financial investments go down. One final point, don't expect a kind of resolution. Satyam was one piece near manufacturing company. It manufactured services. It was easy to sell it to highest bidder. Here you have 91,000 crore of exposure to pension funds, mutual funds, preference shares, the corporate deposits, and large bankers and shareholders. It's a myriad assets in various stages of completion, some of them excellent assets, some of them not so good assets. We have a very poor record of resolving financial problems. And as Parikshit said, we have a very poor record of even understanding how to finance infrastructure. So don't expect miracles like Satyam, but this is the best given the circumstances. Government just had to step in.
All right, this is the best that we can expect at this point in time. Lata, we are awaiting that order any time now. I'm given to understand the judges have arrived at the NCLT. But before that, let's talk about what we saw coming from the Reserve Bank this morning, which perhaps has been clouded by what happened at IL&FS. The Reserve Bank saying this morning that it will buy the government's bonds worth 36,000 crore rupees from banks under the open market operation route in October. Lata, much needed relief coming in, especially as far as the bond markets are concerned?
I would call it Reserve Bank style quantitative easing. That was needed because the markets had gotten jammed up and you needed to put in more fuel. And this is unprecedented from Urjit Patel. Urjit Patel, even at a time when the previous RBI regime was cutting rates, was not in favor of easing liquidity. If Patel is speaking about not just liquidity, but announcing it in advance. You know, announcing in advance has a very important psychological impact because people are able to take a view of 1 month ahead rates because they have a view of 1 month ahead liquidity. That always eases the sentiment and allows people to lend at least for a month because you know there is going to be liquidity for the next 1 month. And we are seeing the impact. We saw the 10-year rate, which is, of course, the most visible rate, going down below 8%. But even 1 month CP and 3 month CPs have gone down by 30-40 basis points. Sure.
I'm interrupting you, Lata, because the order is out and the NCLT, I don't think that there was any doubt in what the NCLT would have ruled, but the NCLT has basically said that IL&FS can be, the board will be superseded by an interim period of suspending the current board and getting a new board is allowed and to take over the management with immediate effect. So that is the news. That's the order that's come in from the NCLT. It is fit to revoke the current board of IL&FS and install a new board. This was the government's petition, and that has gone through. The NCLT is saying that the interim period of suspending the current board and getting a new board has been allowed to take over the management with immediate effect. So as Lata, I was pointing out, I mean, this seemed like virtually an obvious ruling coming in from the NCLT, given the manner in which the government had moved court this morning.
I just wanted to tell you what is the section 241. It precisely any members of a company who complain that the affairs of a company are being conducted in a manner prejudicial to public interest or in a manner oppressive to any member of or members may apply to the tribunal for an order under Companies Act. So basically, that is exactly what Section 241 does. Allows a situation which everyone believes is not going to the public interest to be handled by an external member, or external member or members. So that's exactly what the government had asked for. And the NCLT, which mind you is a tribunal. Remember, the NCLT is meant to be a company law board arm. It is only after the IBC was passed it started doing insolvency cases. This is their primary function, to look at boards and how they are run. And now they have pronounced their verdict that the IL&FS board is going to be superseded and a new board put in. We know that the government has asked, as the petitioner, that Uday Kotak should be the chairman of the new board. And so that now what we were always saying could be a possibility has come in. Yes.
Yeah, Lata, you know, it's interesting. It's not a 10-member board. It's a 6-member board that has been appointed. And look who makes a comeback here as well. I mean, the man who was brought in to try and steer ICICI Bank out of trouble, GC Chaturvedi, has been brought in by the government into IL&FS as well. So, GC Chaturvedi...
Also, don't miss Vineet Nair.
Vineet Nair.
But he's someone else. Not
Vineet
the old
Nair,
one.
that's exactly what I was going to say. Vineet Nair... I'm guessing it says retired IAS officer, so we just need to clarify whether
it can't be,
whether it's Vineet Nair.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Tech Mahindra Vineet Nair or not. Yeah, but
GC
Malini
Chaturvedi
Shankar,
actually
again from the IAS.
No, I just wanted to say that GC Chaturvedi has a tradition in banking. Even before he joined ICICI, he was chairman of Oriental Bank of Commerce, and before that, he was special advisor or additional secretary in the Department of Financial Services. So I'm not surprised that people like him are there because they have one leg in banking as well. And then you have, of course, Malini Shankar, Nand Kishore, I don't know which Nand Kishore this is. GN Bajpai, former SEBI chairman, has also been inducted. But I cannot get who is Nand Kishore. Is this NK Singh? He is Nand Kishore Singh.
You know, I
don't think it would be him.
That's my, yes, he is. I don't know if it is him because he's already heading the Finance Commission, so it would be very odd
just a minute.
for NK Singh to be brought in here.
I think we are spelling Bajpai wrong. He's GN Bajpai, B-A-J-P-A-I, not Vajpayee as our former PM. It's GN Bajpai. That's the former SEBI chairman. That's okay. We are all excited because there is a new dispensation coming for what until yesterday looked like a difficult problem. So it's GN Bajpai, B-A-J-P-A-I. So just forgive us. We got the name right. It's just the spelling. That will come for you on your screen. No, not Vajpai. It's Bajpai. But the others are there. Uday Kotak, GC Chaturvedi, currently also chairman of ICICI. Go ahead, Shireen.
Yeah, we've got Mr. Umarji, former Chief Legal Advisor of the IBA, joining us. Mr. Umarji, so now it's a done deal. The board of IL&FS has been superseded. This was a petition filed by the government this morning. And Uday Kotak has been brought in as one of the troubleshooters to try and get IL&FS out of its current storm. What do you, A, make of the government's decision to take over IL&FS, and B, the Satyam-like resolution plan that now seems to be put in place?
So this is a replacement of the board of the IL&FS, and the new board will prepare a resolution plan for the company and try to resolve the problems which the company is facing. This won't be under the provisions of the Insolvency Code. It is outside, it's under the Companies Act.
Yes, that's right.
And it will be a scheme of arrangement or some scheme which is prepared.
Yes.
And which will be, again, the jurisdiction is of NCLT only. And NCLT will approve it.
Yes.
Yes.
So entire assessment will be done of
Mr.
the...
Umarji,
Yes.
Yeah, that is right. I'm just going to request you to hold on for 10 seconds, sir. We've also got our other guests with us, Ajay Srivastav, as well as Sandeep Parekh. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us. As I pointed out, the order is now out and the NCLT has ruled in favor of the petitioner, which is the Government of India. Sandeep, your first reaction to the decision, and now Uday Kotak will also have 4 companies on the board, the new board of IL&FS, people like GC Chaturvedi, who was brought into ICICI Bank, Vineet Nair, and a few other former IAS officers.
So I think it's fantastic news because what this company requires is a new board and new kind of fresh minds to think of the problem. And you know, as I said in the morning, it's become a problem far larger than I. So I think there's necessity for the financial markets to calm down, the credit to kind of defreeze. I think this shows besides the actual restructuring of the board, I think this also shows that the government wants to intervene to the extent possible and resolve the issues of the financial markets. Because the financial markets are both highly leveraged and susceptible to contagion, and therefore a quick and effective reaction is always the best.
Okay, well, just want to reiterate what Mr. Umarji was pointing out. When we look at NCLT over the last 18 months, we tend to think of the insolvency code. This is not an insolvency case. This is the original role of the NCLT. It was not meant for bankruptcy cases. It was meant for company law board cases and for implementation of rules under the Companies Act. And that is what it is doing today. It is sitting as part of the company law board, and it is saying that this one board is superseded and a new board has been put in because the old board, it believes, as the petitioner argued, the government is not serving the public interest. Therefore, important to remember, this is under the Companies Act. So don't expect a dismemberment of the company or its assets. It will be a new scheme of arrangement, as Mr. Umarji has been speaking. And now we have other members as well. All the members are out there for you. Uday Kotak, GC Chaturvedi, GN Bajpai, and look at where they come from. GC Chaturvedi with experience, an IAS officer with experience in government, banking sector, as well as having been chairman of a couple of banks. GN Bajpai, ex-SEBI chief, was also ex-LIC. Vineet Nair, retired IAS, I don't know more about him. Malini Shankar was in shipping, Director General of Shipping up until recently, so probably well experienced in infrastructure. Well, I just wanted to know, Mr. Mittal has joined us. Sorry, go ahead, Shri.
No, also just wanted to point out that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs is authorized to appoint 10 members on the board of IL&FS, so more members will be appointed on the board of IL&FS going forward. This is the first cut, but more members are likely to be appointed. But I do believe that we have the former banking secretary also who is very well versed with affairs at IL&FS with his past experience, Mr. D.K. Mittal, joining us. Mr. Mittal, you know IL&FS well, sir. You've served there for several years. I think it was 2004, if my memory serves me right. What do you make of the situation that it finds itself in today?
I think it's a very, very great board of persons of great competence and integrity and commitment. I'm confident the market will react very positively tomorrow for the reasons that the government has constituted very good board and government has acted decisively.
Okay.
And these two things will calm the anxiety in the financial sector market, which is there for quite some time now, for about a month.
Okay. Well, I take your point that these are people coming with a variety of experience, Mr. Mittal. But Sandeep, I mean, since you're working with bankers and investors very closely, will bankers lend? I mean, will it be the case that a bridge loan will be given to finish a project? Will they recast, restructure loans? Is this board and the situation where we are enough to... Okay, Sandeep, just wait a minute. We've got Arijit Basu, since he is both an investor, SBI, he's the SBI Managing Director, is an investor, 6.42% stake in IL&FS. Mr. Basu, how would you react to this, this development?
Yeah, so I think we welcome the development because it is positive in the sense that whatever are the irregularities, etc., which have come out, they are being addressed, and the government has shown its intent that we want a good resolution to the entire issue, because please remember that IL&FS has a very large and complex structure, and it can have impact on various aspects of the economy, the markets and all that. So it's a very, very welcome step.
Mr. Basu, you will have to admit that, this is a 91,000 crore loan and it is some 40 projects. And it is perhaps about 40,000 investors. Of course, I'm exaggerating. But there are, pension funds, provident funds, mutual funds, intercorporate deposit lenders, preference shareholders, and, of course, myriad banks. I mean, how quickly can you expect a resolution at all? Is this a 1 year, 2 year kind of timeline we are looking at?
No, so first, what needs to be done is that, as you rightly said, it's a very complex structure with there being a holding company and there are companies subsequent to the holding company which has in fact led to the project. However, what the new board, I'm sure, will be looking at doing is to very quickly get on top of what exactly is the interlocking of funds, etc., and also look at any kind of mechanism by which all the good assets. So there are a lot of good assets which have been created. There are many assets which are running well. As you have been reporting, the company also has been looking at selling some of these assets and reducing the debt.
But
so
just
how
on that
quickly
point,
we
Mr.
can
Basu,
do that? Yes.
Mr. Basu, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you, but just on that point of monetization, sir, and we've been speaking with the board members of IL&FS, and they basically say that, look, we tried with Ajay Piramal, we tried with Lone Star, but unfortunately those plans fell apart. The other problem seems to be with respect to the business model of infrastructure financing itself in the country, which seems to be flawed, and that's something that they're pointing out as well, whether it's government receivables or it is this business of the RBI circular, which IL&FS today claims has been a big challenge and been a big issue. So, these issues are not going to go away from the table merely because a new board has been put in place.
So, two quick issues. What happens is that when investors come in, they also need to have comfort that the company and the overall holding company is very well managed and they are being run well. So, I think this is a very, very positive step in that direction. What it does is to give a signal to the investing community that things are going to be mended, and that confidence itself might induce companies to look very closely at what can be done. On the issue of infrastructure, I think a lot of steps, positive steps itself, is being taken by the government and other stakeholders to make sure that some of the issues which have come up in infrastructure financing in India are addressed. So it cannot be done.
Yeah, Mr. Basu.
Everything cannot be solved in one
So will
day.
this, as a banker, Mr. Basu, sorry, before I hand it across to Lata, does this inspire you as a banker, sir? Because, through the last few days, we've been speaking with bankers, whether it's to deal with the rights issue, etc., and there was a crisis of confidence. Now, in light of the decision of the government as well as this takeover, does it inspire more confidence, at least somebody like you as a banker?
Yeah, absolutely. It does inspire confidence. And what we will do going forward is, of course, any kind of request or any kind of resolution that the company has to offer, it will be examined. Of course, it has to go through our normal processes of credit due diligence, etc. And we will examine it, but certainly we will have a greater degree of confidence now that this decision has been taken.
Sir, it actually means that you will have to put in the first place, are you going to put in whatever 300, 400 crores of equity capital, which is what the rights issue requires of you? And will you also be willing to give a loan? That's what they immediately need.
Any decision on that would depend on what are the steps being taken, what are the resolution plans being proposed. They will be very closely examined, and it will be entirely an outcome of a very, very normal and very rigorous due diligence process. Of course, it has to be like that. It will not be different.
Exactly.
But one of the things that also we were contemplating is that do we have the faith in the present management or the way the company is run? To that extent, this is clearly mitigated and it sends a very positive signal.
I take your point, but this is what all equity investors told us. Equity is always the last to come. An Oryx or an Ardia will first see whether there is a resolution from the bankers And after that resolution is completely in place, only then the equity guys are going to put in their money. Would that be how it will work?
I think we should give some time. It's a very, very experienced board. They are all members who have been selected are people who have very wide experience of how to manage finance companies. And I think let us give them some time and let us see what are the kind of decisions that they take. And I'm sure that all the stakeholders, whether they are equity stakeholders or the banks, will going forward be able to take much more positive decisions on this issue.
Okay.
Mr. Basu, before I get Mr. D.K. Mittal back in on the conversation, a quick question that I want to ask you, sir, because, you know, the government arguing in the NCLT today that the reason why it's intervening is because the collapse of IL&FS would have a multiplier impact on the economy, that the mutual fund business will virtually collapse in India. We would see significant redemptions, etc. You know, just on the basis of the collateral damage and what the government has hoped to stem today, some of the bloodletting, do you believe that at least you know, the domino impact has perhaps been reined in today?
I would think so, because what was happening was that market sentiments were turning very negative on the entire NBFC sector, because IL&FS was an NBFC, and NBFCs, as you know, have a very close association not only with banks but with the entire financial system, which includes mutual funds. And that, as you would have seen, was having some impact on the markets and the sentiment, which was not very good for the economy at the moment. So to that extent, certainly this is, as I said, a very, very positive step being taken. And we hope to utilize, I hope that going forward, the IL&FS boards will be acting in the right manner. And there will be a lot of confidence which will come back into the market because of this decision.
Okay. Well, actually, today we've already...
In terms of next steps, Mr. Basu...
Okay.
Sorry. I just wanted to understand, Mr. Basu, in terms of next steps, what is it that your expectation would be now that this new board has been announced? What is it that you would like to see in terms of tangible next steps?
Yeah, see, what has happened is there are clearly some mismatches that were thrown up by IL&FS. They had a maturity mismatch, they have a liquidity mismatch. And the board is going to examine what led to this and what is the quick way out of it. In a sense, there has to be some kind of a resolution plan, which so far the company had been contemplating, but here there will be some outsiders who would be able to look at it in a much better manner. And once some kind of a resolution plan is brought in place, and there will be some support which would be required based on that resolution plan, and the various stakeholders will then take a look as to how they can go forward within that those parameters, which includes both the equity, the debt share stakeholders, and others in the market.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Basu, for joining us with your replies. Mr. Umarji, I just wanted to ask you, you've been there, done that. You've been the father of the SARFAESI Act. Okay, we're getting him in a minute again. Sandeep, you've seen many such cases. This is about the most complex financial institution we have at this point in time. Resolutions of other, the 12 first IBC cases and the next 30 pale in comparison to the resolution of this giant. How quickly should we expect even the first asset to be sold or any restructuring to be done?
Jonathan, that's a very factual question, and it will depend on when the next commercial paper or other debt is coming up for payment. So, there's a huge mismatch between asset and liabilities in all financial institutions, including banks, NBFCs.
But all that will be stayed, no, under 241. I mean, I don't know if they get permission under 230 also. Won't they stay all their repayments for now?
No, so one is whether the court has stayed that.
I don't think. They only said 241. We don't know about 230.
Right. I'm assuming they've not stated, but in any case, even if they've stated, I mean, it'll be in IL&FS interest to kind of start making payments so that the confidence comes back. I mean, which is why the government has stepped in. I think they will bring in equity infusions. Again, it'll depend how much equity infusion will depend on how much needs to be paid out over the next 6 months or 3 months. So liquidity will have to be taken care of for repayments. Okay. And then over a longer period of time, I think they should not go for fire sale for the simple reason these assets are not very liquid. Okay. These are, you cannot extract much money out of them if you try to sell them in the next 2-3 months. So they'll have to do a more orderly sale, and they'll probably need to reach out to not just domestic but international players as well.
But this would be a long drawn affair, wouldn't it?
Yes, certainly. But, you know, the postmortem can wait. I think the bigger picture is really financial contagion. Yeah. So I think if that gets contained, if the source of the rot is kind of taken care of, I think the rest...
No, I agree with you. I'm just asking you this because, you know, everyone talks about a Satyam type. That should not lead to expectations that a resolution is round the corner. It stops contagion, yes. But...
No, so see, Satyam is like a mosquito in front of this. There's like a herd of elephants all running in the same direction.
Okay.
So,
let's be very clear. This is a bigger problem. Yep. Yeah. Go ahead, Sir.
Yeah. We need to stop them running in the same direction.
The only reason why the comparison with... I think the only reason that the comparison with Satyam is being made is because 11 years on, this is the first company post-Satyam where a government takeover, so to speak, has been pushed forward. But let's go back across to the former banking secretary, Mr. D.K. Mittal, who was at IL&FS between 2004 and 2008, if my memory serves me right. Mr. Mittal, you know, given what we've seen happen, what do you think has gone wrong, sir, at IL&FS? And the reason why we're asking you that is because, you know, you put a new board in place, but that doesn't magically solve all the other problems that this company has been faced with or its subsidiaries have been faced with. So how long and arduous is this road to resolution likely to be?
See, fundamentally, you know, if you go to 1987 when IL&FS was set up, its role was to promote infrastructure and arrange financing for that. It was not supposed to do construction side. See, you can't sit on both sides of the project. The one side is you develop the project, that means you help the entity which want to develop the project, set up the project in terms of getting clearances and risk and everything. I mean, everything which is required for project development, then also arrange financing, and if necessary, take equity into that. So you sit on the left side. But when you sit on both the sides, then that's a great risk, and that's what they have done. Earlier, they were doing the construction activity on a very low level. In last 10 years, they expanded it phenomenally for reasons best known to them. And that is where they have been dumped. There are allegations of corruption, serious allegations of corruption, there are serious allegations of money laundering. No, I do not know whether they are right or wrong, but there are allegations. They need to be looked at. There are allegations of large money being siphoned out by the senior management by drawing high salaries. That's also there.
Fair point.
So I think you have all kind of allegations there.
Yeah, you know, so when money starts receding, these allegations come in. But Malini Shankar, Malini Shankar has also joined us.
That's what I wanted to...
Yeah, ma'am, exactly. I just wanted to ask you, what do you see as the first priority of your board, of the new board?
Well, it's very clear that the government has... I'm very happy that the government has bestowed this honor upon me. It's very clear that the finances need to be looked into and cleaned up. It's, after all, public money. And I will not be able to say anything at this point of time because I will have to look at the proceedings and collectively decide the road ahead.
Okay. Are you familiar with the working of the institution?
I have an outsider's view of it. Obviously, I've not worked within it, but I am familiar with their projects that they've been taking up over the years. Yeah.
Ms. Shankar, if I may ask you, ma'am, when did the government reach out to you to express its intent of trying to get you on board for IL&FS?
That is something I would not prefer to say at the moment.
Well, I just want to point out, Shireen, that...
Can you give us some? I mean, has it been a few days, ma'am?
So I think I will reserve my comments on that.
Has this... Okay, do you have any indication of what next steps are likely to be now, Ms. Shankar, in terms of when the new board is likely to meet? What is the mandate?
No,
what is the communication from the government to you, Ms. Shankar?
I will have to wait for the communication from the government. I'm hearing it from the press, but I will have to wait for the communication from the government. Okay?
But surely the government must have reached out to you before making the announcement, ma'am. So
there is something called formal communication also, and I will consult the government. There will be a briefing, right?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Sure. All right, Ms. Shankar. Appreciate you joining us.
I just want to point out...
Malini Shankar there, retired IAS officer. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to point out this Nand Kishore, I have finally found out, was Deputy Controller and Auditor General. So he is not NK Singh. And I can't believe that the chairman of the Finance Commission will be asked to be on this board as well.
Yeah.
So clearly this is another Nand Kishore, and he was, I think, Deputy Controller and Auditor General. So it makes a lot of sense. I think a former member of the CAG, that's the best guess I have from Googling. So that makes it a fairly competent and many-sided, many-talented board, a very versatile board, you will have to say.
You know,
yeah.
That is true, but Lata, I just want to go back to the conversation we were having, and this is the first reaction with a new member of the board that's been appointed by the government, Malini Shankar, former IS officer there. And you know, when we asked her on when the government reached out, there was a guarded sort of studied silence on that issue. So I would imagine that it's been a few days that the government has been trying to work on this plan. And remember, on Friday, the Economic Affairs Secretary had told us that appropriate measures were being taken, and clearly this is what they had in mind.
Shireen, absolutely. You know, Shireen, that scathing... Okay. Yeah. No, I was going to say that scathing brief that they read out at the NCLT could not have been prepared overnight. Clearly, the weekend has been used for that. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, Mr. Mittal, you know, what do you make exactly the point that Lata was making of the argument that the government presented in court? To talk about the reasons why it's intervening, saying that this will have a significant impact on the foundations of the economy, mutual fund industry, and so on and so forth. But to allege misgovernance, to suggest mismanagement, to say that the board was acting like parasites, I mean, those are strong words that were used today in the courtrooms on part of the government counsel.
See, I have no access to on what basis government has given this briefing to the lawyers, but they must be having some information. In last 30 days, a lot of information must have been collected by them. There are agencies which will have this information. And if that information is there with the government, they are very right in saying, alleging these things in the court.
Mr. Mittal, you know,
no,
just for the...
but what to...
Tell me.
Sorry.
Tell me later.
No, Mr. Mittal, what I wanted to ask you is that, you know, this was an issue we were discussing. We haven't really cracked infrastructure financing, have we? I mean, first we tried it with ICICI, the DFI, IDBI and IFCI. That failed. There were long-term tax-free bonds that they issued. We couldn't crack that. Then we had IDFC, which RBI was a capital investor. And the idea was that we will have government funding, RBI funding, but private management. IDFC got nowhere in financing infrastructure. And IL&FS, an older experiment, is now coming to grief. Clearly, we have not cracked infrastructure financing. You may find, a fraud here and a fraud there and a fraud in several places. But this is not a fraud issue. This is a concept problem that India has not cracked.
The infrastructure financing, unfortunately, is not understood very well by bankers and financial institutions. I would like you to find out any country where you can disburse money to a project where all issues are not resolved. That means, I mean, take a road project where land is not acquired, the environmental clearances are not received, utilities are not shifted, the contract is not signed. Which country you will get money disbursed? It is only our country you can get money disbursed. In which country I, as a road project owner...
That's also because a large number of institutions are government-owned. And that is one reason why they disburse.
We will come to that issue. But let me say what is the issue. The second part is you enable the promoter to set up a SPV, do the gold plating of the contract. Nobody asks about the conflict of interest. And he raises money from there and puts them into equity. I think it is only our country this can happen. So if you finance infrastructure which are income, see, road projects were being financed in 2010, 11, 12 with 10% land acquisition. Can you beat it? Are we mad? We have financed power projects without a coal arrangement, without water arrangement, without PCA, without power.
Mr. Mittal, you must blame your fraternity also. They have also been sitting on projects and delaying permissions.
I'm blaming them fully. I'm taking blame myself as a part of the government. I have no problem to say that. Okay. But the question, the whole synergy has not been set up in the system. We announce a project and set up tomorrow. It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen that way,
Yes, okay.
So we have to understand. And we have little understanding of project development. The power of project development is, you should look at the ONGC Tripura power project being set up in Tripura. Or a hotel being set up in Guwahati. Or a hotel being set up in Tripura. So these are some of the projects. Or maybe the waste-to-energy project set up in, say, Delhi. No, these are our infrastructure project development work, which takes years. And you have hundreds of meetings with the regulatory agency to get them clear. No, that is the power. We have no vehicle here to have project development. And without project development, how can you set up a project, whether it is road project, housing project, or anything else? So nothing happens with that. So we have less understanding. Bankers have no understanding. They have no capability. Regulator has also failed to insist on these things because they all come to regulator. And regulator never asks them, how do you disburse money? So I think these are the serious issues. And which infrastructure model has not failed. It is the way we have implemented that has failed.
It's the way of implementing the infrastructure model that's failed. But let me also bring in Kalpen Parekh of DSP Mutual Fund with us. Kalpen, appreciate you joining us. A 6-member board being put in place, the NCLT issuing in order to supersede the current IL&FS board, the government taking over. Your reactions and your thoughts on what this is now going to mean to calm market nerves?
I think incrementally fairly decisive and positive direction, because it indicates that the government is taking charge and not looking at a piecemeal solution, but a rather long-term revival of the whole situation. And, it's a fairly accomplished board which is put in place. So we'll be looking forward to their first comments on October 8 as the board meets and, shares the larger blueprint of what next. What will be important to see is the company able to see ability to raise capital over and above, the larger roadmap of selling assets.
Kalpen, the more immediate point is that have mutual fund investors got that message? Have you seen any receding of redemptions last week and Monday today?
So, like we've been saying all through, large parts of redemption over the last few weeks have been the liquid fund, which is, mostly the September phenomenon, and some bit of worry in the last few days regarding the NBFC exposure. Today, beginning of the month, beginning of the quarter, mutual funds have actually seen inflows again. And this decision to some extent will also bring back confidence that the contagion, as it was feared that would spread out, will not happen. Even the Reserve Bank acted early in the morning and infused liquidity through commitment of repos. So positive steps by both, the government and Reserve Bank, and I think that should go a long way in building confidence.
Well, actually, I did notice that CPs of 1 month and 3 month also, even 3 month, until yesterday, last month, it was only 2-month paper that the yields started receding. Today, even the 3-month paper yields have receded. But you have to tell me, have CPs across the maturity seen fall in yields?
It's a bit early because, like I said, just the first working day of the quarter, not all investors have put money back into liquid funds. Typically, in the first week, around the 3rd and 4th of the month, is when most of the flows come back. So whatever you lose in the month of the last quarter comes back by the first week. I guess this time around, the credit policy also is coming up. So I think banks will just wait and watch before they put the money back in the system. And once cash flow cycle starts coming back, we will be flush with funds. Automatically, we will start looking at tenors and deploy.
NBFCs have a long tail. We only know, visibly when we discuss in stock markets, the big NBFCs. What happens as it recedes in size? Do you think by the time the last man gets money, it'll be too late? Will NBFCs go under? Or do you think we are nowhere near that kind of a situation?
No, I think what we saw was more a liquidity freeze last week. And if we are able to solve for that in the next few days and weeks, particularly for the mutual fund community, I think a large part of our investments across all mutual funds are in, stable NBFCs, which have the right business model. So I don't see a worry as far as mutual fund portfolios go.
Okay. Just hold on, Kalpen, for a minute. We have Deepan Mehta also joining us. Deepan, the market showed remarkable, recovery today. Is this recovery for good? Do you think the worst of the scare has been put behind? Or is this recovery temporary?
See, I think markets will watch for further news flow and how the debt market is reacting and accepting this news. And if more or less I think things are getting back to normal, then we would certainly have seen a bottom for the moment. There are other macro threats like rising oil prices and rupee depreciation. But if those also are more or less contained or in the range or what has been already discounted, then I think we would have formed a bottom and markets could start building from this point on. But don't expect a V-shaped recovery. I think it will be more gradual, lot of grinding sideways trading sessions before one can cover a lot of lost ground that we have already, a lot of lost ground to recover, considering the fall which has taken place over the past fortnight or so.
Right. Sandeep, I very quickly want to get your thoughts, given what we saw the government tell the court today now, and what it means for the board that has now been superseded, specifically the independent directors that have also been named party in this matter. Sandeep?
Yes. Can you please repeat?
Yeah, I was just asking you, given what we've seen the government tell court today and the fact that independent directors have been made party to the matter, what is their fate now?
I think all directors have been removed, and that seems to be the clear message and the final order of the court. So I think they are all out as of the
the fact that they've been removed is a given. But I'm saying post that, given the fact that the government is alleging that there are irregularities, there's mismanagement, there's misgovernance. So what is the road ahead going to look like for them, since they have been made a party to the case as well?
So I think the postmortem is going to take a long time, because it will, it's going to be a mix of. Again, I don't know what breakup, but mix of breach of fiduciary duty.
Okay, I think we just lost.
And many of the infrastructure projects, many of the policies were not received. Power sector, many people have not paid up for long periods of time.
Yep. Sandeep. Okay, we seem to be losing Sandeep every now and then. We'll try and dial back to Sandeep Parekh. Kalpen, you have to admit that this is not going to be a Satyam-like kind of solution in terms of timeline. It's going to take time, and a very long time. Our record of resolving financial cases has been rather bleak and stretched. So will the market be able to keep its nerve if IL&FS is ring-fenced but is resolved only over the next 18 months?
Yeah, I think a very important question, because, particularly from mutual funds perspective, the investment horizons are finite. We expect maturities to happen on a certain point in time. So I'll be looking forward how soon, the new plan of action comes through, and that will help us get more clarity on how this resolution takes place. But I agree with you that the problem has taken a long time to reach this stage. The solution also can't be really overnight, and we'll have to be patient and really hope that this decisive move translates into significant, calming of nerves for the marketplace and helps us with, getting the money back.
Right. I just want to point out, Lata and Kalpen, that we should just bring up the rupee also, because while the efforts on the part of the government as well as the Reserve Bank have been to calm bond markets as well as the rupee market, the rupee, the last I just had a look at it, was 72.91. So that is going to be something to keep an eye out on as well. But next steps, we will follow through on where this is headed. This is the first in terms of the takeover. The board has now been superseded. That order clearly being given out by the NCLT. A new board has been put in place, headed by Uday Kotak. 72.91. That's the dollar rupee for you. We'll continue to track the developments in this matter. But Kalpen, Sandeep, and all of our other guests, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Lata will, of course, continue to delve deeper into the situation at IL&FS right after this short break.